At 7 o'clock on the morning of July 15th last, the Garda Public Order Unit was stood down from the former Crown Paints factory in Dublin, and the mood seemed quiet at last after weeks of protest against plans to house hundreds of asylum seekers and refugees there. Workers had finally entered the site to get the job underway. But no sooner than the specialist Gardaí were off the scene, trouble flared again, and their uniformed colleagues were left outnumbered and abused by the mob until nearly lunchtime. Commissioner Drew Harris has admitted that in hindsight, that was not the right decision to stand down the public order unit at 7 in the morning, and he says we have accepted that. Now, I want you to meet John O'Brien. John served as a detective superintendent here in the Midlands, and he is now a police and security specialist and indeed author. John, you're welcome to the programme.
Well, good morning.
And for accuracy, I believe it was a chief superintendent, detective chief superintendent.
Well, we won't fight over the difference, Will, but yes, you are right.
Now, over the last few days, you have been commenting on social media, expressing your views on this situation, and you pull no punches when it comes to the Commissioner. So talk us through your views.
Well, in your intro, you made two very pertinent points. You said what I would call there was ample prior warning that what was going to happen in Coolock, at a particular time was going to be dangerous, it was going to be violent, because there were all the signs of that since way back, I think, in February when the first protests took place. By the way, I think it's perfectly legitimate for people to have concerns in relation to what's happening in their neighbourhood, whether it's migration or whatever. But that, of course, has to happen within a rule of law context, and I think we would all agree on that. At least most reasonable people would. The question for Mr. Harris is, and it's a very simple one, did he have a plan? Now, I can tell you that for all Garda events, whether they're football matches in Tullamore or hurling matches in Tullamore, there is a written plan. It's called an operations order. And in that plan, it details the event, it gives you the logistics, the where, the how, and the when, and it also deals with contingencies, the what-ifs, if something doesn't go wrong. And that's based on good policing experience, over many years. So if he had a plan, one of the first points I made over the weekend when I was commenting on this was, did he not account for the contingencies? And how on earth did he think that when something that had such a deep-rooted background in the community was going, the minute that the guards using the public order unit and with the contractors people went in, and then that the locals who had protested, indeed some people who came in from outside, that they were just going to vanish away like the melting snow in spring. Clearly he did not have a plan. And can
I clarify, would it necessarily be the Commissioner who would have this plan, or would it be whoever the presiding superintendent in the area might be?
Well, the plan for and remember there's been a series of these disorders right around the country for probably about 12 months. The Commissioner and his senior staff would have the job, their responsibility rather, of approving a plan. And in particular in Coolock, because there was a long gestation period for it, the plan for that would have been initially formulated locally, then sent through the different levels in the Garda, and the Commissioner in his role would have the job of approving the plan. Now, in relation to this and many other situations, Mr. Harris has always placed himself front and centre. Yes, I agree that I would prefer to see the local chief superintendent as being the person who you would be talking about, the actual operation on the ground, and the Commissioner is at a significant remove from it. But that is not the case. Mr. Harris has always taken the view himself, and look, there are countless examples on both the media and in television and whatever of where he takes a front and centre role. So he took a front and centre role in this. He also addressed the policing authority on the 25th of July on the dynamics of what happened on that occasion. And he gave a pretty, a pretty parsed account of it from a success point of view. I look at this in two simple...
Could I just pick your brain, though, for a moment before you give us the summary, that you will have spoken with uniformed Gardaí,
yes.
Or at least those who spoke with those who were at the scene. Give us an insight into what they went through in the hours until the public order unit arrived back.
It was they and the staff of the contractor who were there were subject to the vilest abuse, intimidation, threats of violence in their face. And the unfortunate guards, and some of them were just literally out of training. You know, this was no place for them. Of course, with properly training equipment, they would be well able to handle the situation. They were subject to the vilest abuse. They were grossly outnumbered. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the anarchists took control of the site themselves, despite the small gather presence that was there, by about 10 o'clock. And they succeeded in burning a JCB that was on the grounds. They succeeded in burning a mattress. They succeeded in seriously assaulting a member of the security staff who was there, who had to be carted off to hospital. And as he was being taken out on a stretcher, the people carrying him, the ambulance crew to take him out, were being abused that this was a fake and so on. So it is a really terrible, violent situation. By the way, there was a sequence to that later on in the evening outside Coolock Station, which is the station directly responsible for this area, where there was a major demonstration. And you can see, if one looks at the video of that particular day, of guys in mass literally vandalizing Garda cars outside the station, jumping on the cars, generally causing mayhem at that stage. Now, there were 34 arrests later on. So that's, but also something else. You know, I'm long left the Guards. When I talk to ordinary people who saw that Primetime Investigates program on last Thursday, they are absolutely horrified and disgusted. And so are all of my colleagues who are now retired. Look, we faced danger in the past, and we mightn't always have got it right, but we never, ever conceded the ground to the mob. You just simply didn't do that, and sometimes you did it at great risk to oneself. That's what you did. And this is what happened on that particular day. I was just about to mention there was a phase one which was won, and that is taking back the site on the early hours of the 15th of July. Phase two was when the aggressors took control of the site again around 10 a.m. And the ultimate thing was that they succeeded, because that site is still inoperable. And Mr. Harris, if he had a plan, and it was his responsibility, and it is his responsibility to have a plan, it should have catered for the contingencies. He doesn't simply get away with just simply saying it was a mistake. Mistakes have consequences, and in this case, the consequences should obviously be considered.
And for him, what consequences are you arguing for?
I think he, as an individual in a very senior position, should take a very serious reflective view, and he should ask himself, based on this incident, does he enjoy the confidence of the plain people of Ireland in the way in which he's running the police service? And does he enjoy the confidence of the plain people of Ireland in relation to what happened in Coolock on the 15th of July? And indeed there have been many other incidents as well. I mean, we do remember that something like 90% of the Garda force voted no confidence in him last year. And if he doesn't enjoy the confidence of the plain people of Ireland, and I was listening to the minister yesterday on a news programme, and she was parsing her replies quite markedly, and if he is satisfied, and in fairness to himself and his family, if it has gone beyond the point where he has no other contribution to offer than what we are now seeing, he should go.
Now here lies one problem: succession. And for unrelated reasons, it is well documented about pension and taxation and so on. But there has been a reluctance by Senior Gardaí to step up into the role of the Deputy Commissioner. So if he walked off the field, who would lead the force?
Well, I've studied the history of the Guards from 1922 to right up to the current date, and it never has a vacuum been allowed to occur at the senior positions. It is, you're right. Of course, the issues around this issue of the pension penalty, which incidentally only applies to people who have gone up inside the Garda ranks. It doesn't apply to members of other police forces who are now in the Guards at a very senior level. They won't have that penalty problem because they weren't serving here and so on. So succession will be filled. I mean, even in the past, believe it or not, and people of course won't be aware of it, two senior justice officials were appointed as Commissioner of the Guards for something like 20 years, from the 1930s right up to the 1960s. There are always contingencies, and there are always short-term contingencies. But one of the I liken this to a bit like the Titanic, Will, is there are a whole lot of people, thousands of people in the Guards who are working very hard. I know many young Guards who are absolutely wonderful, sensitive, warm, caring people. But it's a bit like the Titanic. The captain on the bridge is not guiding this ship in the right direction, and that's why, if he no longer has the confidence of his own organisation or the confidence of the public, in fairness to him, and he's had 7 years, 7 long years in the seat almost, he should, of course, do the honourable thing and go.
Well, just for the record, the Irish Mirror carried your comments this morning. They contacted the Garda press office for a response. A spokesperson said they don't comment on third-party remarks, but the Commissioner will not be quitting.
Well, in the words of our northern friends, he is for staying. But I think the facts speak for themselves, and one should never personalise this because it's tough on family. But the reality is, on this occasion, as on many other occasions, his approach to policing hasn't worked. Remember, the first really serious disorder of riot was on the 23rd of November last year, where clearly the guards in Dublin were under tremendous pressure. Nothing seems to have been learned in the meantime.
John, thank you for taking our call today.
Will, pleasure, thank you. Bye-bye.
John O'Brien is a police and security specialist and author. He's a former Detective Chief Superintendent here in the Midlands. Got something to say? Here's how you say it.
Something on your mind? 083 30 10 103. Powered by Lamb Brothers